to the February 20th Board of Selectmen's meeting. The meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be shown online and on local access television. If you'd please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on the agenda we have special town meeting. I believe March 25th is the date that David said worked. So we need a vote to approve March 25th for a special town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we need a motion to
Mr.
open
Chairman,
warrant.
I would just ask that you would just amend the vote so it'll be at 7 p.m., please.
Okay, is there a member for 7 p.m.?
Yeah, probably include that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what do you want for a closing date, David?
Yeah, so I'm going to request that that you would open the town meeting warrant, special town meeting warrant this evening and close it on March 1st at 12 p.m.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to open the special town meeting warrant and close on March 1st, David?
Yes, please.
March 1st at 12 p.m.
Second on motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved meeting minutes of January 9th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And accept for review the meeting minutes of January 23rd and February 6th, 2019.
Motion to accept the minutes of January 23rd and February 6th for review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we have an appointment of Janet Carlson to the Council on Aging Board of Directors. The current Board of Directors sent a letter recommending this person to the board. I haven't met her. I believe she was unable to make it tonight, but if we want to approve the appointment, I'll then ask her to come in just to introduce herself at a subsequent meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now going to start the budget hearings. So we have kind of a tight schedule tonight, a number of departments coming in. Up first, we have the treasurer collector.
How are you?
Hey, how's it going, Scott?
Good.
So we'll start out with the treasurer collector budget, number 1450. I will go over anything that's had changes on it. If you have any questions at any time, stop and I can give you an explanation on it.
Perfect.
The first line's my salary. The fiscal clerk is, that went down because Janice retired and Tori took over, so she's coming at a lower step. The assistant treasurer collector is Maureen, and delinquent tax collector is Jean. Those are all contractual raises. If we go down to 5191, the career incentive for certification, that went up $500. Maureen received her certification from the Treasurer Collectors Association this year, and she gets half of the stipend that treasurer collector gets, so that's why that went up $500. 5241, equipment maintenance. It's on the postage meter. Last year we got a new postage meter. The first year of the contract was $45 a month less because maintenance was free. So now that contract has gone up. So I'm requesting a raise of $600 on that. Data processing service. Most of that goes to our payroll company. Some of their costs have gone up, and they've taken on a little bit more of a role with all the transition in the school payroll department lately. So that's an increase of $1,500. 5342 is printing and stationery supplies. I did a $250 raise in that, just for a regular increase of costs of envelopes and things of that nature. 5345 is postage. Stamps went up. On our end, it's going up 3 cents a stamp. So I just took the 11,500, divided out how many stamps that would be, and then increased that total by 3 cents. Came out to about $750. And everything else was level funded.
I just have one question. The data processing,
Yep.
so is that the additional that you've been spending recently? Is that going to be continuing, do you think, or was that just a...
This was the first
one-time?
year he had raised supplies in 5 or 6 years, I believe. So I think overall that should cover it for a few years.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Is that bonding is a yearly thing?
Yes, Maureen and I have to be bonded yearly. That goes through the insurance company.
Is that hardware and software and this stuff?
Mostly computer upgrades in the office. When Tori came in, 'cause right now we've been using older computers, so I've just been holding off to see if we needed anything else before we upgrade anything else in there.
Okay.
Can we go back, I'm sorry.
Oh,
did
go
you
ahead.
have we go back to the data processing
Yep.
for a minute? It looks like it's gone up a little bit in 17, 18, and 19 is a little sharper of an increase. I don't know if you're going to come out for 2019 to the 16,000, but now it's jumping up to 17.5. So it has been increasing, small increments, and then suddenly 1,500.
The requested amount for each of those years, I believe, was 16,000. So
Okay.
I think this is the first year where supplies are actually going to come in and factor into it. And then we had to do more outreach this year with the new payroll people at the school. So he spent a lot more time. And then also the tax reporting requirements keep becoming more complicated. So he handles all that, the W-2s, the 1099s, the 1095s. So we've been relying on him a little bit more lately.
Who's him?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Danny Berman. He runs a company called Customized Data out of Whitman. He's been doing our payroll since 10 years maybe.
Okay, so is it something we've looked to see if we can get a better rate on, or do we just go with the person we've always had?
He in general is cheaper. He's his own company. A lot of the other communities use SoftWrite and Munis. They're much more expensive than he
Okay.
is. We really like him. He's always available. He also prints our tax bills now. That's a separate line.
Okay.
But
Right.
we like him a lot, and he's probably on the cheaper end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we can move along to debt principal.
So debt principal 7,100. This is level funded across the board. These are all our debt payments. Most of them are built into long-term debt. These are what we have to pay every year. There was a small $40 or so increase on 5913, and that was just an uptick in the WPAT wastewater study loan that we have. One of the loans goes up in principal by a little bit every year, and everything else is level funded.
Any questions on that?
No question.
Nope.
Okay.
7510 is the interest on the long-term debt. It's basically the same. Some of the interest costs go down as the borrowing goes on. So overall, it's a little less than last year, but most of those are locked into long-term bonds that we've signed.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay. Short term.
And the last one is just interest on short-term debt. This is just interest that we have for our bands. Bands are bond anticipation notes. They're our short-term borrowing. We have one that we do every year for our municipal purpose loan that covers, this year we added the library roof and the street light to it. But the things that we haven't bonded yet. And we've held it at 50,000. Interest rates are going up, but that should still be sufficient for this year.
So what are we currently carrying? For bands?
Right now, it's the fire truck from 2012, the traffic signals and library roof from last year, and then there is some water articles that's in their budget.
Any other questions?
What are we paying for interest on those?
Interest on that's been a little over 2% this year. I don't, it's been, that was in December. I think it was like 2.2.
Scott, just to understand, this is short-term interest
Yes.
on these bands.
So
but
that
it-
corresponds up to, it's in the retirement of debt line, 5922. The bands, that's what that corresponds with.
Okay, so just to, I'm trying to put the numbers together. So for like 2018, we had roughly 157,000, but our interest was 44.7, almost double the prior year. I'm just trying to figure out how the interest rate goes double from the prior year, but the borrowing is almost flat, a little more, but not much. Yeah, actually, if you go to 2017, the band was 176 and the interest was 22. But then you go to 2018, the bands was 157,000, but the interest was 44.7. So is that a rate reflection or timing?
Partially. The rates they've more than doubled since I took over. It's only been a year and a half, so that they have more than doubled. The other part of it is on the bands, we have a minimum that we have to pay, but we try to pay more. So the loan isn't just for $200,000. It's for $1 to $2 million usually.
Okay.
So depending on what else we paid off the year before, that's going to affect how much interest it was. Because just the $200,000 isn't what we paid. It's how much we paid, but it's not how much was due on the total loan.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
It gets confusing.
Okay, any other questions for Scott?
Nope, I don't know.
Good. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Fire department.
All right.
Chief, how's it going?
Excellent, you guys. Winter's passing kind of nicely for us. No big storms this one. So it's the same thing. We'll just go through any changes. Obviously, mine is it's contractual. It's actually a little bit less than what's on there. That's changed my bottom line. Clerical salaries. Again, I'm asking to reclassify my secretary from the fourth level, which is the senior. Because at that point, when 18 years ago, her job has really changed. She's taken more of an administrative assistant position, and I'm asking to move up one spot to principal secretary. That reflects the budget if it's approved. Permanent salaries, contractual. All the overtime line items is reflective of the contractual raises. Same with longevity and stipends, that's all. Educational incentives are all contractual. As requested, I went through the heating, knocked $500, and I'll explain. I moved that kind of to another line for which I need to add money. I'll get to that when I get down to it. Equipment repairs and maintenance. You see, that's up there. That line item is pretty well covered by maintenance fees as far as the monitors, stretchers, ambulance stuff, and there was really no money to make actually repairs to equipment of our sources, like Scott air packs. Like I say, I'm over because I had one fixed, cost $1,500 to fix one air pack the other day. So I added $1,500 to try to get some extra money to make sure our equipment stays in maintenance. That's what that's for. Because like I said, that line item is pretty well taken up by maintenance contracts. Ambulance billing services, I had $1,600. I have to add a license. Right now I'm sharing computers with one license to do our ALS coordinations and our ambulance billing. And to get, the earlier you get the ambulance billing in, the faster you get paid. Because it's kind of a list of pecking order who gets the money. And the faster we get bills out, that would just make things a lot easier and more efficient to add one more license to our service. Gasoline, I went through. I took $1,000 off of that. Hopefully gas prices stayed the same. And which I took that $1,500 I had to ambulance supplies. Obviously the cost of supplies for medical supplies is crazy, and our run volume is up 10%. So the cost of running the ambulance is more. And if you could see where I combined my oxygen line item, which is $5,500, which I only spend about $1,000 a year. We changed a few years ago to a new vendor, and we saved a lot of money. And as you see right now, by 12/20, I've spent about $13,500, which runs. I'm going to be running to the $28,000 range, is what I increased that line item to, just to cover the expenditures, and stay level funded on everything else. And basically a 2.8% increase from this year.
So you're pretty well staying on budget.
Yes.
Any questions?
I don't know.
Nope.
If you have anything, call me. I'm always, if you have questions or want anything, feel free to call. We can sit down. But pretty simple, pretty cut and dry.
Have you officially submitted the clerical change?
No, I went to the David once, and then we're going to talk further about it.
Okay. All right.
All right? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me, I believe John is here, so let me grab it.
Okay. Come right up, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, if you don't mind, I would like to give you a handout that will be part of my, sorry, Chairman.
No, that doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you for having me here this evening. I have submitted a memorandum that went with my proposal, but basically the budget for the Conservation Commission is contractual for the salaries, and the longevity and the incentives that are in the contract reflect in the salary items for my position. Where there is a difference is in a couple of areas, and I'd like to go through that and explain it. The first one is for the other salaries. Last year, in the previous year, we had used the services of a intern, and we still had some money left this year, luckily, in that account, because I wasn't able to get an intern this year. So when we found out we had some additional tasks to do for the MS4, we were able to use some of the time, or some of the money out of that for the time that I'm using to catch up with MS4 requirements before July 1st. So it was fortunate that we had it in there. So that has been bumped up because I'm proposing to work 4 more hours a week, specifically on MS4 coordination. And I gave you this handout this evening because using my contacts, I talked to a colleague in a nearby town and asked for some advice as to what it was going to cost to budget in for their MS4 contract for the next fiscal year. And they're using an outside engineering firm as their MS4 coordinator. And you can see the extreme number that they're using for their budget this year. It is $42,000. I think that with my 4 hours each additional week for the next fiscal year, I think I can accomplish the same task that they're quoting $42,000. And the reason for that is they're an engineering consulting firm. Their hourly rates are anywhere from $120 to $150 an hour, and so it doesn't take long to chew up that kind of time. And so I feel very confident that I can do the same type of work with the assistance of the town employees here, where I may have to call on the highway department or the Board of Health to do a few minor projects for me. So I don't think we need to get into that kind of money for West Bridgewater. So I'm looking forward to the challenge if the budget is approved, and try to accomplish what the EPA is looking for with that 8443 for that line item. Mm-hmm. The other line item that has increased is engineering services, and you can see that that was zeroed in the previous years, and I'm proposing that I hire a GIS intern from BSU that can go out and map some of the areas that are missing information, and that's one of the requirements that the EPA is asking us to do, is to go out and map new items that have been added to the storm drain systems, and discover areas where we don't have any information and yet there's an outfall or a structure that doesn't show up on our map. So we need to have someone who can locate it with the GPS coordinates, and then also be able to edit the stormwater map. And so that's why I put in $5,200 for basically 4 hours a week. And if I can find an intern that doesn't cost as much, then obviously we'll have money left over in the budget at the end of the year. But I try to use a reasonable figure for an intern. And so with that, all the other items stay the same.
So basically, you put all these demands in. Are they coming up with any extra money so you can do some of these functions, or are they just staying the same?
They aren't coming up with money. Well, what we can take advantage of is their training programs that they have, and there's a webinar coming up that I'm scheduled to attend, which means I can do it from my computer in the office. That will help train me for some additional things that we need to do. They do suggest that the towns institute stormwater fees for new development. If you have a lot of impervious surfaces that end up creating a lot more stormwater, they suggest that there be a small surcharge on those types of developments, and so that it could get money into a dedicated stormwater fund that we can draw some of this money from rather than out of the town budget. Now, of course, that has to be handled delicately, because you don't want to just discourage people from improving their stormwater systems or improving their infrastructure for their businesses, their buildings, their parking lots. But you also need to be able to fund this, and that's what the EPA is suggesting we do. And Chris Giannatelli and I attended workshops that the EPA put on that sort of trained us to figure out these more or less innovative ways of finding funds instead of taking it out of the town budget. So I haven't got anything proposed yet, but that's what we'll be working on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one comment. The GIS, so I'm not sure if David has talked to you at all. I know he's talked with other departments, and they're trying to devise a plan on the future of the GIS in the town and its current underutilization. So I'm not sure. David, did you want to talk about that now, or do you want to wait?
Sure. Yeah, no, John and I had a brief conversation about it earlier today. He had obviously proposed a budget before I had an opportunity to speak to him, but I mentioned in my State of the Town address, we are desperately in need of a GIS person holistically for the entire town, For example, the water department is paying for one right now. There's some other departments that are paying fees towards one. John is proposing to have one, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to have that type of fragmentation. However, under the new EPA guidelines, under some other regulations that we have with DEP, and the fact that it's going to give us access to information that we need to have one person. And colleges now have turned this into a real field. You hire someone with a GIS-related degree. So with that said, I'll be looking for funding for that this year. And so if we were to secure that, then this $5,200 would not be needed in the Conservation Department budget.
Do you have any idea collectively how much we spend for GIS services when we look at all the different departments? Is there roughly a number that as a town we're...
So right now, what it looks like is we're probably spending about $20,000 or so in payroll expense. That does not include probably a couple of $1,000s that we're also paying in software expense. That doesn't mean it will go away, but because they're separated into different departments, and then those individuals all have to do the work and be trained on it, which is a soft cost. You know, if I would much rather John, with his level of expertise, be doing what he's doing versus GIS-related materials work, which a lot of our other department heads are sparingly trying to do, and quite frankly and candidly, not always getting it right. That's not being negative. It's just that they're not trained on it.
Right.
And so there's a cost to that I can't put a dollar value on. But I've already started doing the research on this, and it looks like a typical salary for someone in this position is going to be about $65,000, $70,000, somewhere in that range. Again, give or take. So if we have $15,000 to $20,000, actually about $20,000 in labor costs right now, some other soft costs, this $5,000, we're already starting to approach 50% or 60% of what we're already paying. So, and we don't have somebody who is specifically skilled just for that, doing it holistically for the town. So that's really going to be the thought process going forward.
So this isn't special to West Bridgewater. I'm sure there are other towns faced with the same issue with GIS. Is this something that could be looked at as a share type of person? Because it doesn't sound like we need someone full-time. And maybe there's another small town that's in the same position. They don't need someone full-time. We could get into a share job.
Yeah, so I've considered that, and I'm not necessarily against regionalization in a whole host of other areas. For example, we've been working on a regional dispatch center for our public safety, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Where I get concerned is anything that has to do with DEP and EPA. And because usually you're going to share with adjacent communities. So, for example, and John could speak directly to this if you wanted him to, is that East Bridgewater right now is in the middle of an audit because they are in the process of being fined from the EPA for non-compliance into their EPA guidelines. And so the concern that I would have is that if we were partnering with East Bridgewater and they were to be audited, we're going to get pulled into that automatically by accident. And, you know, these fines are not going to be a couple of $1,000s. So my fear is that whenever it comes to DEP or EPA, is that we have full and total control. If we do something wrong, hey, it's our fault. But I do not want to get pulled into something that's that is outside of our control.
Well, speculating that their situation might be the result of non-compliance. Again, speculating. But if we had someone who was on top of this, and then they could share their experience. If they're learning it for East Bridgewater, they're going to learn it for West Bridgewater.
The only thing I will say, Denise, is this. John, I want an honest answer. I hate to say this on camera.
No, it's okay, say it.
But on a percentage basis, how many municipalities across the country are compliant with EPA guidelines at this point?
Not many.
I mean maybe
there-
less than 5, if even that. You know, my point, all of us, including West Bridgewater, without identifying where, are not compliant because of the special complex regulations that none of us have hired additional staff to handle. So it's not that East Bridgewater is not compliant. They flat out got unlucky, the way you get unlucky during an IRS audit when they pull your name. And so if we have shared resources with multiple other towns, we run the risk and a greater risk of our name getting pulled, because if they pull, for example, Dayton, and we're partnering with Dayton, we get pulled into that. Where we're a small town, I'm hoping that we fall under the radar on those. But that's, again, that's just my thought process on this in reference to EPA, DEP regulations.
Well, but if the person's doing their job and it's done right, then who's afraid of an audit? But understanding what's going on in other towns as well, so we're one of many. I mean, it almost sounds like it's supporting what I'm saying, that a job share may not be such a bad thing.
Well,
Just something to think about. I'd like to think about, because hiring, we talk about $65,000 to $70,000 a year, then we add benefits.
Correct.
And then we add vacation time and sick time and all those other times onto it that they're not here as well. So you hire a full-time person, but it's really not full-time. So, and I'm not saying that as a negative. Everyone deserves their time off. If right now we're doing it for $20,000 a year, not quite right, and not what we need, not sure I can see jumping up to $70,000 a year.
however, if I could just add a couple of points. West Bridgewater, along with a lot of the surrounding towns, belong to a Southeast Regional group of DPW and conservation people that are involved with stormwater. And they're basically trying to bring in training for all of these towns. And when you go, there's only a small percentage of them that show up. And then and the reason for that is some of them are relying heavily on an engineering consultant to take care of it, so they don't bother going to the training. But I haven't heard anything about the towns talking about trying to share a person or to share equipment for like the GPS receivers and equipment, software and that kind of thing. They all seem to be doing their own thing or subbing it out to a consultant, the engineering consultant. And then the other point I want to make about having a GIS person here is that that person would help with what I need to do for the stormwater, might help the water department do what they're doing to locate hydrants and water gates and the water infrastructure. But the GIS person could be instrumental in having a town-wide mapping that would benefit the fire department so that they know where they can call up where their hydrants are, and when they go to a fire and it's a lot of deep snow, they will know right where it is based on their tablet that they have with them. The Board of Health could have all their data downloaded into the GIS that would tell the health agent while they're out there at a perk test where perk tests were done in the past historically and that kind of thing. So the GIS would be town-wide, theoretically used by all the different departments, because it's going to be a geographic information system that puts data in that every department could use. So it's a definite, the towns that have them, it's a definite benefit to all the town departments, and it's something that maybe the cost sharing within the town departments could pay for it, instead of having just me having an intern and water department having one and not having a really complete GIS system. So it's something that is going to be needed down the road, and it would benefit a lot of different residents and departments. So it's something to consider, but as far as having the different towns talk about sharing, I just don't hear it when I go to the meetings.
Maybe you can start it.
Well, it's something that's being done in the western part of the state, because they're a lot smaller towns and they can't even think about doing this without sharing. But it tends to, as you get to the eastern part of the state, the towns seem to want to have direct control over it, so that they know where their money's going, and that when they call upon the person, they're there, and they don't have to wait in line for the assistance from the shared person.
Well, maybe as you're networking, with the others in your field, John, you can bring it up to see if it's something they would be interested in.
Oh, definitely. We're all talking about ways of trying to save the town's money. Although the one that gave me this information, it didn't seem like they had any interest in doing it themselves, so they're just passing it along to the taxpayers, and I can't see that for West Bridgewater.
All right. Thank you, John. So just quickly, open space.
Open space, there is no change. We tend to use most of the budget towards the June event that we have for Riverwalk, and usually most of that money gets used for the event, and so that's why, if you notice, it there's not much of a drawdown at this point, but we're now starting to do the planning for the Riverwalk event, and we need to use that money to continue that program. So we're glad it's there, but we're not asking for any additional.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any other questions?
Hey, John.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
John.
Thank you. So wastewater treatment and Board of Health were unable to attend tonight, so those will be rescheduled to another night. So we have data processing, Mr. Saro.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay, this is pretty simple, actually. Data processing coordinator, I put in for 3%, which I typically received every year. Office equipments and maintenance, I kept that the same. GIS and engineering the same. Data processing services went up a little bit, and there's a justification sheet there. It's an increase in cost on KVS. That's revise. It's just KVS and revise, actually, that make up that particular line. Revise has stayed the same. I think we're in a 5-year contract with them. That's the website. The consultants went up a little bit, and there's a justification on that. Now, the consultant is the line that we share with the school department, the water department, and the town. So we have a 40% share on the town side, which is town police and fire. School department's 55%, and the water department is 5%. And that's how we break that up. So, and you can see that the justifications for that. HubTech, which is our biggest provider and so forth, has not asked for an increase. And it's all based on really renewals, whatever we get for renewals that we have to put in. Some of the things are reaching end of life, and we're going to be talking about that soon, I think. But this is our antivirus renewal and whatever equipment and so forth that we have. So that $88,000 that you see there is divided according to the formula that we have, and our share it would be $35,000. Internet connection, the same thing. We divide that. We've changed our provider. We went from Windstream to Comcast, and we've had a substantial decrease for better service than what we had. In fact, we actually even we're using Comcast for phone system throughout the whole town now, and knock on wood, it's been pretty solid. So this line right here reflects internet for the town and the phone service at the high school. That's how it was originally figured in. And so it'll show you the decrease from Comcast. And of course, then we get E-rate off that too. So network equipment I kept the same, computer supplies the same, and computer equipment has been the same. Other than that, really no major changes. Everything that's gone up or down is reflected in the justification sheets.
Perfect. Any questions?
I have none.
What did you say network consultant is?
Network consultants are the people that provide support for our network, which would be HubTech, which do the physical stuff, and then renewals on service contracts and so forth on the equipment. That's what makes up the consultant line.
In grand total, it's $88,000 a year
This year.
this year.
This year. Some of the stuff that we had purchased that came with the new high school, all of a sudden has now gone through they bought whatever they could buy for the biggest warranty they could buy. Now all of a sudden we're supporting it. because the warrant, they got 3-year, 4-year, whatever they could do. But that time has come and gone, so now we're footing the bill on that stuff.
And that's allocated to the school, that share of it?
It's the equipment is town-wide equipment. It just happens to be housed at the high school.
Okay.
So that network is a town-wide network.
Okay.
So it's just, home is the high school.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay. All set.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks. Take care.
David, are you going to run through these?
I am.
smaller ones?
Yep, so Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll just take them kind of as a group. They're all level funded. Agricultural Committee is our local committee. That's budget is $600. Just a level funded request on that. The next 4 I would group in as more or less, say, charitable organizations. Woman's Place Crisis Center, based out of Brockton. We've funded them for years. I've put in a level services allocation of $2,750 year over year, the same. Brockton Area ARC, again, based out of Brockton. They are an outreach advocacy group for people with disabilities. We level funded them at $250. Old Colony Hospice, they service the entire South Shore. Their principal headquarters is out of New Bedford, but they have local services throughout the South Shore. Level service them at $2,000. And Plymouth County Extension Services, which for the most part is where a handful of our West Bridgewater youth go for. They do things such as 4-H for youth development. I level funded that at $200, so the same year over year.
Any questions?
So on some of these, David, you said level serviced, but they're actually, it looks like they're level funded.
Level funded, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to move all those budgets that we went over to the Finance Committee.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Instead of doing them individually, we did them all at the end, that's what I figured.
Yep, perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Okay, up next we have appointment to the Capital Budget Committee, a representative from our board. I'd be glad to do this. I don't know if anyone else has interest.
Well, I have no interest in it. I don't know if Denise, you have, you wanna serve that? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd
You
be
would like
glad to
to?
do it.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
And I will second that.
Okay, Capital Budget Committee.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Vote on Allegra quote for Finance Committee and Town Meeting books. So we need a vote to award the contract to Allegra. The quote is subject to change depending on the length of the book. It's a per-page quote, I believe.
Yeah, and there's technically 2 quotes, one for the Finance Committee handbook, which is our handbook that goes to town meeting. The other one is our town meeting books. Their budget and the Board of Selectmen's budget. We do it every single year. Allegra already has its template set up, so there's no additional cost for that. So I'm just looking for a vote to award them the contract for both the Finance Committee handbook and for the town meeting book.
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We received a letter from the School Building Authority for approval of the Howard School roof. David, did you want to briefly go over that?
Yeah, so this is the primary reason that we're calling a special town meeting, is that there are leaks in the current gymnasium roof at the Howard School. Back in the fall, you, as the Board of Selectmen, authorized a letter to go to MSBA informing them that you would be interested in their accelerated repair program. We have now received formal approval from them, as you can see, dated February 13th. They will cover a little over 52% of the cost. Right now, it is estimated that's going to cost us somewhere around $500,000 for the roof. We'll have to go out to formal bid, but that's what our owner's project manager is estimating. So they would cover somewhere around $250 or thereabouts. So this is just formal notification to you as the board that you have been accepted in the program. We now must secure funding to be approved through the program within 90 days of February 13th. And again, that is the primary purpose of calling the special town meeting in March, to bring it to the voters for their support and vote.
And would you explain the partial, what part of the roof is this going to cover?
Yeah, so the formal notification says partial roof on the Howard School, and that's because we're not doing the entire roof on the school itself. We would just be doing the gymnasium roof, which is, obviously partial of the building.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask a
Yeah, go
question about the roof? Because even going back to the days when I was on Finance Committee, we're always talking about fixing school roofs. And I'm just wondering if this is, say, 25% of the roof, maybe? Are we looking at, are we putting off the inevitable? How is the rest of the roof?
So my conversation with the superintendent is that the Howard School in Eldon, you may recall exactly when, but she says that it's not that old, that the roof on that. For whatever reason, we should have done the roof on the gymnasium at that point, and we didn't. We did the roof on the rest of the building. And I'm inferring from my conversation that that was within the past 15 years. Scott earlier was referring to some interest costs associated with the schools. I believe it was the Howard School, and I believe it was 2008. So that's my understanding.
Okay.
Well, I'm going with Denise says there. It seems to be, since I've been on this board, roofs. And, it's, when is it? I know every so many years you got to replace the roofs, but we kind of got in a real hole here with roofs. I'm just thinking, I hope this pretty well catches up with what we have to do,
Yeah, my thought was just that if it's, if the remaining 75% has a 2-year, 3-year useful life left, and it sounds like it doesn't, it has longer, should we just do the whole thing now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I obviously agree with the argument. Just based on what I'm being told, that part of the roof is in good shape.
Okay.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you, David.
Oh, thank you.
we have the resignation of John Duggan and Karen Wilbur from the Cap and Trust. The Cap and Trust is for the Council on Aging. So is there a motion to accept the removal of trustees Karen Wilbur and John Duggan?
Motion to accept the resignation of Karen Wilbur and John Duggan.
Send a letter of thanks.
Yes, and send a letter of thanks
Second motion.
and service.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and approval of the new trustees, Scott Golder, Marilyn Mather, and Dave Fazio.
Motion.
So
Second.
Oh, sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
moved. Aye.
Hey, public comment period.
No comments.
Sound like anything? Town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, majority of my time is obviously spent now on budgets and getting prepared for both annual and special town meetings. The only other item that I have under here is per your policy, as I'm informing you that on Memorial Day, there will be the 17th annual run that is a fundraiser for diabetes. I signed off on it, and as I said, per the policy, it's a notification to the board.
Thank you, David. Is there anything else from anyone? Oh,
I don't know.
is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.